Good morning, everybody. The Rev here. It's time for a cup of coffee with Jesus. I hope you're doing well today. Man, this is some good coffee. I had a little bit of two kinds of beans, threw them together, ground them. Won't be able to duplicate it. It's good coffee. Hey, I was pondering last night. I was laying in bed. I mentioned my good friend Robert Hayter the other day that he's an incredible evangelist. And sometimes people think that he's a little bit on the rough side, but he said, he goes, it's not me that offends people. He said, it's the word of God. He said, the word of God in itself is somewhat offensive to believers and unbelievers alike. It's a conviction to unbelievers. It should be a conviction to believers too. But I used to think about that when he'd said that. He said, the word of God is offensive. And what it doesn't offend people. It offends what spirit is in and around them that they don't like it. They don't. It's not that you're trying to be offensive, but I mean the religious leaders in the times of Jesus, they got offended at the word of God. To this day, church members get offended at the word of God. You know, we like to use the scriptures that tell us that everything's okay, but some of them are just flat offensive to our lives, our lifestyles, our choices. But we have the ability to make a choice. Am I going to believe all the Bible or just the parts that make me feel good? Am I going to believe every part of it, including the healing and all the stuff that I'm claiming for good in my life? Or am I only going to and I want the ones that convict my lifestyle? I was laying there just thinking about that last night, and I got up today and I was reading into Galatians, and Galatians 1 verse 10, it says, for I do not, let me try this one more time. For do I now persuade men or God, or do I seek to please men? For if I still pleased men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ. One translation I read says, if I was trying to please men, it basically just said I would not be a Christian today. Because in trying to please men and not please the Lord, it causes a conflict inside of you. There will be a huge conflict in you. It might not happen at once, but it will happen eventually. That there will be a huge conflict inside of you when you are seeking and pleasing men versus the Word of God and standing on what the Word of God says. And it can be offensive. It's not that you mean to offend, but when it talks about the iron sharpening iron, you're actually grinding away metal when you're sharpening a blade. So if you're grinding away metal on a blade, and the Word of God says that iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, what do you think that means? Does it mean like, oh, come on, buddy, you're going to do it? No, it's like helping them grind the rough edges off. When my friend Robert would say that, the word of God can be offensive. I used to struggle with that. And then I realized that it's not offensive to me. It's offensive to the things in me. They're not of God. He's a pretty wise guy. And he taught me a lot. He taught me to get deeper into the word and find your own revelation. He taught me that you need to learn to digest the word of God deeply for yourself. He's the one that taught me, get some key scriptures, and that's why I carry a booklet that says my Bible says, and I have key scriptures for my life in it that I repeat. I carry it from time to time. And he taught me that because he'd walked through that himself. He said there was a time, he said he used to carry note cards in his back pockets, and when he wasn't feeling good and a sickness was trying to come on, he'd pull those note cards out and he'd read them, and he'd go through them one by one, and he would read them. And sometimes he would say things that were offensive to me, but I realized it wasn't him being offensive to me. It was the deep revelation of God in him that was offensive to how I was maybe living or acting at the time. And he sharpened me, and he taught me things. So do I now persuade men or God? Or do I seek to please men? For if I still please men, I would not be a bondservant to Christ. If I wanted to be popular, I wouldn't be a Christian. If I wanted to win a popularity contest, I wouldn't be a bondservant to Christ. I wouldn't have taken my ear with the awl and put it to the doorpost and said, I'm yours on my own free will. So what are you going to do when you use the word of God and the word of God offends somebody? What do? How do you respond? Are you going to be apologetic for the word of God? Some of this has to do with how we deliver it, absolutely. Because when we deliver it in love, the offense doesn't build. But the word of God can be offensive. The world thinks it's offensive because they don't have an understanding and a framework to put it in. And it's offensive, and they call it hate speech, and they won't. Even on TikTok, my videos, I've tried to promote them, and they say something does not meet community standards because something in it might not, because a word I say or whatever, they won't promote it. Yeah. It's funny, they promoted a video that said TikTok censors your stuff. That I thought was funny. Anyway, I hope you have a great day today, understanding that it's not you that's offensive. It's not you that they have a problem with. It is the word of God. It is the written word of God that they have an issue with. It's not you. It's the spirit. It's not the flesh in them, because we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but it is the spirit in them coming against the spirit of the word of God coming through the word of God. Plain and simple. So, the word of God can be offensive, especially if they're not in the posture to receive. I hope you have a great day. Love you. See you soon. Goodbye.